This installment of Minnesota Officiating Voices brings you John Lucivansky, native of North Branch, Minnesota, longtime football, basketball, and baseball official who recently culminated an outstanding career in the National Football League. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is John Lucivansky. I've been involved in sports officiating for the better part of the last 40 years. Um, in that time, I've worked football, basketball, baseball at various levels. I grew up playing those sports in North Branch, Minnesota. Uh, and after graduating from high school and heading off to University of Minnesota, I got involved in football officiating. There were some coaches from my high school who had a football officiating crew and needed someone to come onto that crew, and they asked me to do it, and I took them out on that, and that started my officiating journey for the most part. Eventually, after college, I attended Joe Brinkman's umpire school in Florida, and got into professional baseball for several years. Um, once I retired from that, I went back to officiating high school football and basketball, eventually working college football and basketball, and ultimately got to the Big Ten Conference in football, spent 7 years there, and then concluded my on-field officiating career with the National Football League, where I retired from a couple of years ago. Currently, not in addition to working with the high school league on their football officiating program, I work with the Big Ten Conference, the Mid America Conference, and the Missouri Valley Football Conference in their football program. I work with scouting, recruitment, some evaluation, and staff development for them. In terms of one individual that encouraged me, I think there were a lot of individuals. Uh, I mentioned those high school coaches who were officiating football. They certainly encouraged me. I had mentors once I got into professional baseball who offered encouragement, and then all along the way to the National Football League. Um, you know what? Their words of encouragement were typically maybe when you had a rough game or you had a tough call to give you a boost in that time and moment, but more likely uh, people would let you know that you're doing things right. Just keep doing them. You have a good feel for this. You have some instinct for this. You seem to be progressing. Keep doing this, that, or the other thing. So the words of encouragement, and oftentimes the words of encouragement were simply that they wanted you to be a part of their crew or to ask you to officiate with them. Those were a lot of times the way they let you know that at least they had enough confidence to bring you along in those settings. In terms of a moment in my career when I realized I can do this, and I can maybe want to do it or can do it at a higher level. Um, I think in my third year in professional baseball, I finally realized, that I was getting a majority of the plays and pitches correct, and that what I really needed to do was to work with people, handle situations, manage games better, and I think that I kind of came into my own there in my third year, and understood that there was more to this than just getting plays right, and that you couldn't just shout your way out of tough situations. That you really had to learn how to deal with folks and interpersonal skills, as well as just again managing people in a positive way and managing the game in a positive way. So I think that's sort of where I had an idea that I was decent at sports officiating, and that I was something I was going to continue to pursue. As far as challenges, sports officiating certainly You're going to face those. You're going to face challenges on the field, on the court. You're going to have tough games. You're going to have situations where you maybe get passed over for an assignment and you don't understand why, or if you're trying to move up the ladder, maybe get better games or get to another level, say collegiate sports, and somebody gets there before you do. Those are all realities that have happened to everybody and are going to happen to everybody in sports officiating. And you have to overcome those. You just have to keep persevering. There's challenges in terms of balancing your work-life balance. You're not going to get wealthy officiating high school athletics, and you certainly don't make enough to want it to interfere with your job or your home life. And balancing those things are important. Looking back now after almost 40 years, a lot of sacrifices that I made, my family made on my behalf, my children. And if you ask me, would I do it all over again? I'm not so sure. I would do it the same way. I just can't say for sure because there were a lot of challenges. That's not to say that there weren't a lot of positives too, and you have to balance all those things like with anything. Um, but yes, there will be things you'll face, hurdles you'll face, decisions you'll have to make, even if that it means how many contests you're gonna be involved in whatever sports that you choose to officiate. When I look back on my career, my officiating career, the first thing that comes to my mind is the friendships I've made, the people along the way. Most of my best friends or good friends are sports officials. I know there's not a place in Minnesota, place in the Upper Midwest, place in the United States where I couldn't go and be within about 20 minutes of somebody I've had some involvement in officiating with, that I would consider a friend. So I consider that a blessing to have that in my background. Um, so yeah, I mean the games you work, there's people will look back and say, wow, there was some great time, some great travel with people. But ultimately, I think when I think back or I think about the best parts of officiating, it really has to do with the folks that I know and continue to have a relationship with, and certainly some of our shared experiences on the field or on the court are part of that. But some of it is getting to and from the games, and some of it's just the time we spent in the off season working together, maybe on something, and our families kind of growing up together, and getting to know those folks on a personal level. What kept me coming back to officiating, I think, when you first start out, you're just trying to survive. And then you maybe after a couple, 3 years start to thrive a little bit. And it's that pursuit of trying to get better, to get better games, um, uh, to start to be recognized maybe as somebody that has some skill and ability to officiate. Um, you know, I think when I look back, or what kept me coming back was the desire to better manage sporting events. Instead of just trying to call plays and be in the right place, it really became about managing players, managing coaches, working well with partners, being a good crew mate. Those sorts of things are what I really strove to do over the course of my career. Um, and just you're always trying to have the perfect game. I think some of the best advice I ever got was don't let the pursuit of perfection get in the way of really good. And I think once that becomes uh, ingrained, I think it takes care of itself from there. If I was going to give words of advice or encouragement to somebody that's considering their first steps in terms of officiating, I would encourage you to do it. Obviously, it's played a big part in my life and been a great part of of my adult experience and continues to be. You're going to meet great people. Um, you're going to get to be a part of the game inside the lines, which many desire to do, but few get to do. Um, I can remember one time being in an NFL stadium and talking to my head linesman during a TV break about there was a wealthy gentleman whose name I'll leave unstated standing behind me that owned one of the clubs that we were officiating for, and obviously had been very successful in life. But as my head linesman pointed out, he still had to stand behind the yellow dotted lines, whereas we in the striped shirts were inside the white lines, and we were having a part in that game. And that, it took me back a little bit when he said that. I'd never really thought about it that way. So no matter what level you're working at, you're an important part as an official of keeping the game fair, of allowing the participants to have a good experience. And as someone once said, without officials, it's just a scrimmage. And in reality, that's true.
Thank you, John, for your service to athletes in Minnesota and across the country. If you would like to become an official like John, give the Minnesota State High School League a call today.